In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the books I read during January, and of course, Onyx Storm is one of them. So hi and welcome back, my fellow fantasy book lovers, or if you're new here, hi and welcome. My name is Kathy and I'm a fantasy book lover from Belgium. For today's video, I'm going to go through all of the books that I read during the month of January, and there's a grand total of 5. Now, some of these books I'm going to talk about a little bit longer than others, and the first book that I read is unfortunately a book that I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about. I have read it before the accusations were proven correct, unfortunately. It is Neil Gaiman's Stardust. I enjoyed the book, but it leaves a very sour taste knowing what the author is up to, and I will make another video in the future talking about controversial authors and what they have done. I will no longer be reading or recommending anything by this author. It leaves a very sour taste in my mouth that I have still read one of his works. Okay, it was on my shelves for years already, but it feels wrong. And now on to better books, and by better I mean way better. The next book on my list was actually a 4-star read. It is Elemental Affections by Jaime, and then I think it's Ryan or Ryanne, I don't know how to pronounce it. Now, I was lucky enough to receive an ARC for this book through the Nerd Fam. I will be linking all of the information down below. Now, regardless on whether I bought the book myself, was gifted it, received it as an ARC or whatever, I will always be fully honest with my opinion on books. So in this book, we follow a girl named Anade. She's already in her 20s, and at the start of the book, she's living together with her partner, who she's been forced to get engaged to form an alliance between her family's shipping company, naval company, and his family's naval protection company, security company, kind of. Now, they did kind of get along at first, but as you have with forced marriages, there's things going on that maybe not everyone agrees with. And she actually decides that it's been enough. It's been a few years that she's tried to hold up appearances that everything's all right. And she decides to apply for a magic school, because whenever her parents decided for her that she had to get married and get involved in the company more is when she had to give up her hopes for doing magic studies. But she wants to continue them and actually go to this prestigious school for magic. Now, she has been applying for it and she actually has been accepted. So at the start of the book, we have this big transition between her leaving her hometown, her family, and going to where she has always wanted to be, where one of her best friends who actually practices magic lives, and to actually go and follow her own dreams. We follow Anade as she's actually following her dreams and finding out that maybe it's not always easy, but she can put in the work and get it done. So in this book, we have mainly a scholar type setting where she goes to this prestigious magic schools, and one of her teachers is someone she knows from her past, and they have actually been involved, and now they're rekindling their love. So in this book we have kind of a old, not defined romance, and now it's reigniting kind of a little bit with X amount of years in between, of course. And not everything has been said about the situation that happened before. So it's they struggle knowing a few things about each other as well. Now, the best way to describe this book is a cozy fantasy romance. Now, this isn't the highest stake book. However, I felt towards the end of the book, I got really involved in the world. And as you get further in the book, you will know what I mean with this, because there is something going on in this world that they're trying to solve or find a cure for, at least. And that's where towards the end we actually get involved in more. So I'm also very happy to say that this is the start of a series, and I'm honestly really impressed with this book. Don't expect Tolkien from this book, but do expect more than your average Romantasy read from it. I really loved the magic system of this book. I think it's really nicely written, and I also loved the cozy atmosphere and world building that was involved. There's also a lot of found family in this book, and the romance line is there, but it's not super smut heavy. Near the end of the book a little bit happens, but I didn't feel like it was chapters upon chapters like in some other books. So if you're looking for your next cozy fantasy romantasy read, I think Elemental Affections should be high on your list. And because I enjoyed this book so much, I gave it 4 stars. My next read was The Tainted Cup by Jackson Bennett. This book was totally different from most of the fantasy books that I have read in recent years. This was a Sherlock Holmes meets fantasy, and I loved it. We have in this book the world building where there's leviathans attacking cities, and they have built this big wall to protect it. There is magic in this world, there is combat, there is a little bit of everything. And you have a sort of class system where you can be divided depending on your skills, and there's also like, I'm gonna call them body modifications, but it's more than that. You can get like modifications done to be stronger, to run faster, and all of those skills have their use in this world to protect the world from the leviathans. Now in this book we follow an assistant to a detective, and this assistant, he's quite young, he's quite inexperienced, but he has a few really important skills, as in when he scent marks something, he can remember and recite entire scenes. So at the start of this investigation, he smells a vial while going through a house where someone has been murdered or died. And then once he goes back to the detective that is actually in charge of this case, who unfortunately doesn't leave her house, he can smell the vial again and recall everything that he like registered and did during a time span of smelling the vial in the first place. So he's actually transferring the information from the crime scene to his boss, who then tries to solve the case. I found this a super interesting concept, and at the end of the book I had a really good laugh about it as well, because some things turn out to not exactly be the way we thought they might have been. So I definitely got tricked by the female main character. I loved her wittiness, I loved how clever she is, but I also loved how she like tricks some people into doing certain things for her while it's not really necessary. This book definitely is a genre bender, as it goes from like a detective novel in fantasy setting, and it really incorporates the two super well together. I really hope that there will be more books like this one in the future, and I give it a 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. Up next, we get to a book that I was highly anticipating, and it is A Court of Dragons and Twilight by G. Bailey. This is the 5th book in the A Court of Dragons and series, and it should have been an amazing conclusion, but it wasn't. I'm not gonna go too much into depth about the entire series. It is a Why Choose Romance series with 1 girl and I believe 5 dragon shifters. So they're all dragon princes and they can shift from human form to dragon form. I expected this conclusion to be more intimate and to be more smut heavy, I'm not gonna lie, and it really lacked. It felt like they just kept throwing things in there from the previous books just to extend it, and it was really not what I hoped it would be. I did finish the book and I immediately sold my entire series, all 5 books together. I hope it's going to someone who will enjoy the full series. Maybe if you read them a little bit faster one after the other, it might be better, but for me it felt like a really disappointing ending, unfortunately. So I gave A Court of Dragons and Twilight 2 stars. I would give the overall series a 2, maybe 3 stars as well. If you like Why Choose Romances that don't have too much romance in them, then you might like them. I think book 2 was my favorite of the entire series. I also like book 1, but book 1 is really build up, and book 2 you get more into the romance lines between characters, but it's just constantly like they throw something at it and they have to solve it, and then they do it over again. It felt very repetitive. And I feel like this author has all of these series within the same bigger realms, and it's all just blurry or like more of the same. And I personally will not be reading any other works of G. Bailey because it just felt rushed, it feels cheap, it feels poorly written, to be honest. It was not amazing, so unfortunately not for me. And then my final read of January was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. Now this book released on the 21st of January and I actually finished it on the 3rd of February. So technically it's a February read, but I'm going to include it in this video. I struggled with this book, I'm not gonna lie. It is even thicker than Iron Flame and I felt that was not necessary. I'm gonna go in a little bit of spoilers here, so if you don't want any spoilers at all, I will see you for my next video. If you are okay with getting a little bit of spoiler information, then keep on watching. So in Onyx Storm, we start where we ended in Iron Flame, where Xaden turns Venin. And in this book, the focus is on trying to find a cure for him being Venin, whereas in the world there's still like fighting going on and the land is being invaded by Venin. So the main theme of this book could be Venin, basically. But then we also got the cliffhanger of Ondarna being a different type of dragon. So there is a new breed of dragon. And in this book, they're also trying to find out more about this breed of dragon. And then, of course, there's also Violet's second signet that everyone has been debating about. It's not impressive, trust me. So in this book, I feel there's a lot of political struggle going on, a lot of I'm the boss, so I'm in charge, and then she fights against it and eventually she gets it her way. And I felt like the beginning of the book, the first half could have been skipped almost entirely, and then the second half, once they get to the Isles, that's where I found it interesting. And then in 2 pages, they're back where they started, and I was just so mad. And then something that also frustrated me is that most of the book follows Violet. And then at the end of the book, when there's a lot of actions going on, we switch to other people as well. But it didn't add any value. It was just added chapters for the sake of added chapters, because it really doesn't give you more insights into what is actually going on. And then the final chapter, I feel I would have ripped out of the book if I was actually reading it in a physical book. I'm not going to. My special edition has been ordered and I will not rip pages out of it. But I just felt it was not necessary. It was more of a cliffhanger for the sake of being a cliffhanger than for actual added value. And I found this book had middle book syndrome. I know there's gonna be a book 4 and a book 5, but at the way that this book was written, I'm not surprised that there's gonna be more books, because she just dragged everything on for the sake of pages, or at least that's what it felt like to me. I'm honestly disappointed in this book. I'm not super enthusiastic about the rest of the books at this moment. I want to read them, of course. I want to see where it goes, what happens. I love the world that we're in. I love the types of magic. I love the dragons. The witty dragons save the day. Like, the dragons are one of my favorite parts about these books, and I wanted more from it. And for that reason, Onyx Storm gets a 3 stars from me. But of course, we all know that I will continue the series in the future. Feel free to let me know in the comments down below what are your thoughts on Onyx Storm if you've read it already, and otherwise, which book did you really enjoy during the month of January? I would love to know. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already and you'd like to be, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I make new videos every week and I would love to have you for every single one of them. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye!